Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jeongmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Junha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Korea Pro Podcast. It is now Thursday, June 25th, 76th anniversary of the start of the Korean War, and it's a little bit before 4 p.m. today.
Yeah, and well, marking the anniversary of the Korean War, President Lee Jae Myung went to Yeonpyeong Island and tried shooting a bunch of stuff himself. And the presidential office staff were all like, the president is such a great shooter and everything. But that's not really that interesting, right? But let's talk about other shootings that matter a little bit more. The shootings that stopped. Actually, it feels like we have been starting the Korea Pro podcast talking about Iran for weeks now, but let's do that again. So what's the latest?
Well, remember how last week I started off by saying peace in our times by quoting Neville Chamberlain? Well, today I'm going to quote another Englishman, John Lennon, but I'm going to change it a little bit and say give war a chance because apparently peace is not in the cards as of right now, at least. The peace talks are still ongoing, but sure, there are a lot of disagreements. Now, some of it might be just posturing by Washington and Tehran, but there are significant differences. For instance, Marco Rubio was just saying today that there would be absolutely no toll at all for any ship that traverses the Strait of Hormuz. But that's not what the Iranians are saying.
What are they saying?
The Iranians are saying they're going to be what they call service fees for ships that traverse the area. So not a toll, but a service fee, but, potato. And so that's what they're saying. And
so it's back to ground zero.
Kinda. And if we actually talk about ground zero, we also cannot ignore what Donald Trump said about Iranian ballistic missiles. Let's remember that before the start of the war, Donald Trump was saying that the only way this war would end is with Iran's total surrender. And one of the things that Donald Trump has been saying for years, since 2015, when the initial JCPOA was passed, was how this was a terrible deal by Obama, which did not touch Iranian missiles. And just a few days ago, Donald Trump was saying it would be unfair to not allow Iran to have ballistic missiles when Saudi Arabia, a U.S. ally, has missiles. So I'm not quite sure how Riyadh is taking this, but...
So he's very fair in a very weird sense.
I don't think fair is the right word. In fact, I would go about to saying hypocritical, stupid, flip-flopper. I would use a lot of words, but not fair.
I would say fair within quote, end quote. But anyways.
I'm going to say the same thing to you that I said to Tuna a couple of weeks ago. A master of understatement.
Let's move back to Korea-related aspects of all of this. Well, regardless of how confusing it has been in the past week or two, what's the implication for South Korean ships so far?
Well, the confusion has been mostly limited to Washington and Tehran. From South Korea's perspective, things are looking a lot clearer. A bunch of South Korean ships that have been stranded in the Gulf they've made it out. I believe 8 ships have left since the last time, and now there are 13 ships that are still remaining. And so South Korea is making good progress in getting those ships away from that area back into safer waters. So from South Korea's perspective, I'm not quite sure who they're talking to. Are they talking to the Omanis or the UAE? But whoever they're talking to, it's working.
And speaking of diplomacy, there was something that was kind of underreported, although that was very big. It was G7. Lee was in Europe from, I think, 9th to 18th. So that was until last week. And there are some interesting stories coming out of it afterward.
Well, we already talked about a bunch of Lee Jae Myung's trips to Brussels as well as to Italy. So we don't need to rehash that. But on the lighter side of diplomacy, what we did see was that Lee Jae Myung had that selfie moment with Donald Trump. He does like to take selfies with the leaders that he meets.
Yeah, and then there was like a funny moment online, especially X,
formerly known as Twitter.
Formerly known as Twitter, a bunch of American and Korean right-wing accounts, I think, they were posting videos of Lee talking to Trump And then like Lee supporters sharing that on Twitter, and then people saying, oh, like he is just pretending he's talking to him because everybody knows that Lee doesn't speak English. Well, haven't you heard of something called interpreter?
Okay, so the whole interpreter thing, or whether or not it was a conversation that was actually a two-way conversation, well, we don't know if Trump was actually listening.
Yeah.
But regardless of all of that, we do have to note that Lee Jae Myung, well, it was a bit of a try-hard moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was saying, "Oh, look at me! I'm next to Donald Trump during the G7 gala and selfie." It was a very cringe, try-hard moment.
Well, but everybody does that.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the more interesting thing beyond the whole selfie moment was that apparently, I don't know how serious Lee Jae-myung was being, but he's maybe going to play golf with Donald Trump.
I feel like we were hearing this headline like from time to time, but then I think there was like a very specific briefing by the chief spokesperson of the Blue House a couple of days ago, mentioning the golf and then saying we're not sure when, but they might actually go one rounding. And then she was mentioning something like, oh, even the first call that was held between Donald Trump and Lee Jae Myung since Lee was elected was Trump asking him if he's any good, basically.
Well, Lee Jae Myung, he's known to have played golf for a long time. And Donald Trump, well, he also loves golf. Whether or not he's as great as a golfer as he claims to be, that remains to be seen. According to a lot of reports that I've read over the years, Donald Trump loves to use mulligans when he's golfing. But yeah, apparently that's going to be one area where both leaders can actually have more rapport or chemistry with each other.
I feel like we have discussed this sort of issue a year ago. Exactly the same, perhaps talking with Japan as well. But Abe was very close to Trump because of personal relations, right? So personal relations does matter when it comes to diplomacy with Trump. Or some people say that that is probably not the most important thing. But in this day and age of the way that Trump makes decisions, maybe it is.
The only thing that I'll say is that if Lee Jae Myung is listening to this podcast, maybe he should try to lose this round.
Yeah.
Inflate Trump's ego just a bit more.
No, but then I don't think he will like easy win, though, wouldn't he?
Oh, I'm sure he loves easy wins. He'll be saying like, "Look at me, I can beat anyone at golf." And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure that he would just not care.
You're not getting any better with a Trump impression, by the way. You should work on it a bit harder.
Yeah.
Moving away from a very light topic, South Korean politics.
Ugh, okay. So when it comes to South Korean politics, I'm not sure if I'm jumping the shark by saying this, but it kind of sort of feels like South Korean politics is returning a bit to normal.
What do you mean? Sorry, I'm laughing already.
Well,
Rita, what's normal?
Well,
What kind of normal?
Exactly. Well, let's take a look at
The bad normal or the good normal or
well, just normal.
the dramatic normal?
Yeah, just normal. Because if you look at Lee Jae Myung's poll numbers, for the first time, his disapproval ratings is higher than his approval.
A dead cross.
Yeah. And maybe his honeymoon period is finally over.
It's real meter, though.
It's real meter, but as you've pointed out in your analyses, it's Gallup Korea has also shown
going down as well.
that his approval numbers are going down. Sure, whether or not it's approval for the conservatives or whether it's an increase for non-committals, that's a different story. But Lee Jae Myung's approval numbers are going down. So maybe people are finally putting the whole martial law story behind them and are now focused on the here and now, and they're saying, we are not going to judge you on martial law anymore. We're going to judge you on what's happening today.
But what's your main hypothesis when it comes to coming back to normal?
Well, beyond
what's becoming normal?
Well, beyond President Lee Jae Myung's approval numbers going down, the PPP's numbers are going up, and sure, there's still a lot of fighting going on within that party. Chang Dong-hyuk, the PPP leader, still refuses to resign, despite the party just getting pummeled in the local elections. But yeah, we're seeing people drawing the lines in the sand. People are jockeying for positions. We've seen people within the PPP talk about how Chang Dong-hyuk needs to resign. We've seen people talking about how also needs to keep his trap shut and just remain mayor. So yeah, things seem to be going back to people just figuratively punching each other in the face.
So punching each other in the face is normal, and that's back is what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, well, Korean politics has always been a blood sport.
How exciting and cheerful. But Jeong Chang-rae, the head of Democratic Party, it seems like he is going to run again for the second term as party leadership. Good luck with that.
He has his base at the Honam region. He has a lot of support there, but is that enough?
No, also, who else does he have right now? He lost so much support in the past few months, I think, at least. And also, interestingly, in the last week when I published the analysis and when we were talking about it on the podcast a little bit, we were saying that the voters in their 20s and 30s, the approval rate plummeted for Lee and DP the most, right?
And he keeps talking about young voters now.
Yeah, and we can see that that is on Lee's radar, and they're taking it, the Blue House is taking it very seriously, because with the Yeonpyeong visit that I just mentioned when we were starting, you will imagine, like, if it's a Korea War anniversary and you're visiting Yeonpyeong Marine Corps unit, you will talk about the Marine Corps, or, you know, just the assets and the defense. Like, he did talk about all of that without mentioning North Korea by name. And he was quite cautious when it comes to, like, NLL issues and stuff. Like, he was talking about China.
Kind of weird.
North Korea. But no, I think it was very, well choreographed. I think he kind of planned to not really touch on North Korea, but then talk about whatever other people sort of liked hearing about, Chinese vessels breaching the NLL. But then the majority of the speeches and the discussions and the events planned for that and all the meetings and photos and everything, it was all about the young soldiers. He was talking about, in the Q&A section that I was reading, what kind of discussions happened between the soldiers, and Lee was like, what do you need, like, from us? What do you need help from? And then people were like, oh, we need more PC bangs. we need better welfare. It wasn't like they were complaining about it, but because they were asked what to mention, and they were like, better computer rooms, better beds, and, better pay. And also there was something about bus fees for Yeonpyeong folks. I've been in the region once, and it actually is very expensive, and it takes a long time to get to the downtown when you're on Hyuga, when you're off. And so they were saying that it's like over 10만 won. And then Lee heard that, and he was like, that's very, very serious issue. Let me get back to that very quickly. And then
is the president going to somehow affect market prices?
Hear me out. And then not next day, later that day, or this morning or something, Park Chan-dae just won Incheon region, right? So he tweeted or X'd that, Mr. Park, which is his, like, 동지, comrade from the Democratic Party, congratulations on your win. But I just heard from these very important soldiers in Yeonpyeong that it takes 11만 won to get from Yeonpyeong to the downtown area. And this is way more expensive than what the Incheon citizens get, because they get the residents' version of the prices. And they were like, he was like, can you please make sure that the soldiers get the same price as the actual Incheon residents as well? Thank you for your attention to this matter. I mean, but I think it's a good initiative, but then doing a good initiative and then posting it on Twitter is a very separate issue, right? He could have just instructed via email, via call, whatever. But then I thought that was very telling what he was trying to focus on. Week ahead, it's end of the month, so we will see a lot of new numbers coming in.
And among those new numbers, some of those are going to include those from global AI companies. Just around 8 hours ago, Micron released its quarterly reports, and they beat Wall Street expectations. Wall Street expected that quarterly earnings for Micron for this quarter was going to be around 35 billion. Micron reported 41 billion. So that was a much bigger jump than what markets had expected. And Micron also secured about $22 billion in multi-year customer commitments. So this is really great news. And that's because the AI market is connected everywhere. If Micron is doing well, so are their suppliers, so are their clients. And that includes other hyperscalers. And that means that South Korean companies, and by South Korean companies, I of course mean two, Samsung and SK Hynix, they're going to see a lot more demand for their advanced memory chips as well. So here's the thing about the whole stock markets in the AI sector. It's volatile.
Exactly.
And so what we've seen is that there have been multiple sidecars and circuit breakers within the KOSPI. We are not done seeing that. Already we are seeing global AI investors trying to reprice the market or trying to think whether or not it's over leveraged, whether or not they've already been too optimistic. And so we're likely going to see some more volatility. But at least in the short term, and by short term, at least for another year at least, I think it's fair to say that the South Korean companies, they're going to see ups and downs, but overall an upward trajectory in their earnings and profits.
And on the diplomatic end, the South Korean Vice Defense Minister is currently visiting the United States to discuss issues including what to do with the low enrichment uranium fuel for the nuclear submarine, nuclear-powered submarine, and some of the other matters as well.
And all of this information will be sent to your email inbox by Monday via the weekend newsletter. So if you'd like to know more, please subscribe.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
I'm Junho Park.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.